65 horsepower trap. That might pop wide open, Rats.
Welcome in, everybody, to the TPT podcast. Today, we have the honor and privilege of having a big-time guest on the TPT podcast, former Kansas City Chiefs tight end, former Eagles tight end, Jason Dunn. Jason, welcome into the TPT podcast. It is so great to have you. Big-time player for the Chiefs. You also played for the Eagles. We just watched the Super Bowl matchup, but it is good to have you on the TPT podcast.
Man, great to be here, brother. Great to be here. I mean, especially after a night that we had last night, right? I mean, seriously, I was, I couldn't even really imagine or fathom us losing that game.
Right?
I didn't even see like a future of that happening and feeling like this dread or whatever it was. And I was like, oh my goodness, going through that. All I seen was a victory with the Chiefs against Philadelphia, and that's all I could see. That was it. That's all I could see. And so, it all worked out. It all paid off. And I'll tell you what, Kansas City Chiefs, man, they was absolutely phenomenal in everything that they did. And so I had to give hats off to the Eagles. I mean, they played
right.
A very formidable foe with Jalen Hurts and those guys. But the Chiefs pulled it out. The Chiefs that we knew, that we fell in love with this year, all the naysayers and the doubters that was going on these national media shows talking about what the Chiefs were not going to do without Tyreek Hill. Rebuilding year, was fourth in our division, not even in the conference, in our division.
Right.
I was just all crazy. I could not understand it. And so I just, knowing what I know about football, what I know about the guys we watched play over the past few years, we knew they had it in them. We knew they had a championship mindset to them. And when you have great guys like a coach like Andy Reid, the enemy, and Spags, and then all of a sudden you put Patrick Mahomes at the helm, right? And then Travis Kelce doing what he's doing. Then you add on MVS and Juju. You get a young guy, Pacheco, but you'll have McKinnon that was already there. Our offensive line was already in concert with one another over the previous year. I just knew we had something special. I already knew that. And so a lot of people didn't want to see it. They just thought, Tyreek Hill, which is a very talented guy, one of the best receivers in the game, no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
Right? So not trying to cut him, down by saying those things, not being on the team. But you got to realize Patrick Mahomes, PM15, is just a different animal when he's out there playing. And so offensively, we just talking about it on that side of the ball. Defensively, Chris Jones and, Frank Clark showing up, making a play.
Right. Karlaftis,
Carlos Dunlap. I mean, come on now. Nick Bolton, right? Nick Bolton. Everybody was naysayers saying thing about Nick Bolton, and he's been phenomenal the entire year. Yeah.
Right.
He was coming out of college, leading tackle in the SEC. I knew what we was getting. And so you got Willie Gay on the other side. Chanel was out there helping.
Yeah. And not to mention the young secondary. I mean, the rookie cornerbacks, that was always the talk the whole year, is the rookie cornerbacks, and how they were going to be a huge problem on the defensive side of the ball. They were one of the bright spots in the playoffs, especially versus the Cincinnati Bengals. No receiver in that game, I think, had over 90 yards. They had the long balls this last Super Bowl or this last game, here and there. But for the most part, they kept the Eagles receivers under check. A thing I was going to ask you is what you just mentioned is you said you didn't really have any, doubt going into this game. And, you played in the NFL for 11, 12 years. Have you ever, even in your playing days, are the Chiefs at the level now where you just kind of get like even when they're down 10, because they're down at halftime, it's just like, no, they're going to win. Like, they got 15. I know that he's going to put the team on his back and he's going to will them to win. Is this a feeling that you've ever had before, or is it just with this Chiefs squad where you're like, nothing is out of reach?
Look, we've seen it happen over time in the last few years, right? I mean, that's the reason they go to 5 AFC championship games. Okay.
Right.
3 Super Bowls, win 2 of them. There's a reason for that. And because the offense is so electric, you know they can go and hit their head on the goalpost at any chance, at any time, especially with the pieces that they got on offense. And so to me, I wasn't doubting them whatsoever. I had a friend that was here that was kind of saying, man, I don't know, JD. I don't know what they're going to do. And I'm sitting there looking at him like, you must not have been watching the Kansas City.
Right.
You're talking about the most prolific offense in the NFL. By far, not even close. And so when you need to go down and score, I don't care if it's, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 13 seconds, right?
Right, 13 seconds,
13 seconds. The guys are going to get it done because it's just their mindset. And so, yeah, you're right, man. I didn't have any doubt because I just knew Patrick Mahomes was going to be able to, he was going to be able to deliver. And so we know he has a championship mentality about him. And so, like you said, I didn't have any doubt whatsoever about it because I know how deadly our offense is. And I knew the Eagles have not seen an offense like this the entire year.
Right.
Right. And so I think people really missed that point about
it. And something else, as a player, and you played with a great quarterback like Trent Green.
Absolutely.
As a player, when you get in the huddle and you have that type of confidence, talk a little bit about the way that the Kansas City Chiefs have a guy like Mahomes and Andy Reid too. Obviously, it's a reflection on the coaching. But a guy like Patrick Mahomes, when you're in the huddle and you're down by 10, you're coming after halftime, the level of confidence that you can go out there and just look at each other and know this next play, this next drive, we're going to score. They scored on every single drive in the second half. Patrick Mahomes, here's some of the numbers. 13 of 14, had a 99.4 QBR. The highest rating you can get is 100. Wow. He had a 99.4 rating. But talk a little bit about, as a player, the type of confidence you can have in a huddle with a quarterback like that.
When you have a quarterback that exudes confidence and it's infectious, you know it as soon as you walk into the huddle. Like, there's no doubt. There's like, we're here to do business, do our job. And it's like methodically going down the field to score, like just going through it, right? And you just know when Patrick is sitting over here, he's going through the cadence or he's just giving a play in the huddle, all those guys are looking right back at him and they know what they have. And as a player, that is the greatest feeling ever. And I had that with Tim. Tim was one of those guys I knew, look, he knew exactly what the defense was going to be. He was going to get the ball to the guys to make the plays. I could look right there to the left of him and see Priest Holmes, and to the right of him, T. Rich, and then, Willie Rolfe, and I could go down the line. And so
Eddie Kennison.
Johnny Morton at one time. I mean, all those guys.
Right.
And so when you know that, it's like, hey, what is there to be worried about? And I seen when they went in at halftime, you see nobody was dropping their head. Nobody was, disgruntled. They was, they had a thought process like, okay, we're going to get this thing done. Let's just make sure we go in, put everything together, make adjustments where we need to make adjustments, and then just move on, right? And just go play this game. And so that's what you've seen. I think everybody, who was in the TV world, right? Oh, my gosh, Patrick Mahomes hurt. And I'm like, stop acting like this man is not going to come back in the game.
Right.
Stop talking this way like he's done. Like, do you really think that Patrick Mahomes is going to find some way not to bring himself back in this game and run on one leg if he needed to, right? He's just going to pull himself out because, he's wincing in pain. That's not who he is.
Right.
He's a champion. He without a doubt already working into the GOAT conversation. Seriously. That's to me. When I'm sitting talent-wise and I'm watching this, that's what I'm thinking.
And some of the GOAT talk we're going to get a little bit in later, but question I have for you real quick is the offensive side of the ball, they have that type of confidence because as a Chiefs fan, I was sitting there at my Super Bowl party and, some of the other people were like, I don't know, Mahomes, his ankle, and, they're kind of nervous. And early on in my, Chiefs watching years, early in maybe the Matt Castle years or the Alex Smith years, maybe we would get down like this and pacing around the house or a little bit nervous. But now there was a certain piece I turned to my dad and I just said, they may get the field goal or a touchdown the rest of this game. but the Chiefs are going to go out and they're going to score a majority of their drives this second half. And this is just teaching on, I think, the culture Andy Reid has built, where, again, he knows how to just rally his troops. And even, shout out to Spags, what he did on the defensive side of the ball in the second half. And that's what I was wanted to ask you. Talk a little bit about what Spags did in the second half to slow down the Eagles, because they kind of got out of what they were doing in the first half, running the ball. And it looks like maybe, they wanted to try to air it out a little bit and trying to get it out of character. So what do you think some of the things that Spags did to get the Eagles a tad bit out of rhythm?
So I'll talk about Andy first, because you were talking about Andy.
Yeah, yes.
Just kind of doing this thing. And here's the thing with Andy, when he's going in and making adjustments, I think, and we watched this, was a couple of years, the last time they made the Super Bowl, they was always down in the game. And it was almost like they relished it. They wanted to be down, right? We don't want to be like the go slow type of offense. We want to go and score points. We want the odds against us to go score.
Right.
And he knew that. And it was like, look, let's bring those guys out of the bag and go do what we do, right? Go score points. Now, Spags called a brilliant game. I really do. We can look at the points. Look, this is the NFL. Guys are going to score. The defense right?
And like you said earlier, the Eagles are a good team. Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. They're going to put up points.
But number 1 and 2, respectively, in offenses in the NFL, right?
Right.
Without a doubt. So
they scored the same amount of points.
My friend was asking, said, man, how did that happen to get the great defenses? Number 1 and 2 offenses. That's why. Jalen Hurts and Mahomes are great quarterbacks. So that's not really, shocking to know that they're going to score points on, good defenses. But I think Spags, what he did, he knew how he wanted to attack them. And that's what I loved about it. He knew what blitzes to send, kind of like just getting Jalen uncomfortable when he needed to. And I seen Willie Gay pull up on the line of scrimmage, blitz him on a little bit. And Jalen Hurts had to roll out things he didn't like doing. And I think also, too, he started realizing people was breathing down his neck. They were, when I'm talking about pursuing him, they was making sure pursuing him. Usually he's out running guys. Guys were taking angles to make sure we cut this guy off.
Right.
Jalen Hurts is he'll manage the game. He's not going to take hits. He'll step out of bounds and he'll get the yards, right? Because he's just that good. I think he's really doing that. Him and Pat both. But Spags he trusted the young guys to make plays like he did all year. It was going through all the growing pains. And we've seen it. I was telling people, like, look, man, the reason he got these young guys in because he wants to trust them. He trusts these guys to make plays. He is developing these guys to play in the playoffs when it comes down to it. And that's what they did. Yeah, right. McDuffie got beat on the one, right? He, turns his head, rookie mistake, probably what he should have done, probably should have kept going because he had help over top. But the next thing, that's, I think, why they thought, well, we got one on them. Let's go again. And Spags like, no. We're going to talk about this. This is how I need for you to play it. And so I think Devontae Smith, like I said, A.J. Brown, we knew we had to get physical on those guys. Okay? It was going to be
and they were in press coverage a lot.
Yes, they were. Right? And I said, that's what you have to do. Beat up on these receivers. Look, Devontae Smith is a small guy. Break him up, hit him as much as possible, right? You see him start limping a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Took him out of the game. Now, the one guy that I was really worried about, and he showed out, was Goddard.
Goddard.
I tell people, I said, man, that's a good tight end. I like Goddard. He is a really, really good tight end. And when they lost him early in the year, they still carried it through. But Dallas Goddard brings a whole different dynamic to that Eagles offense. And he showed out, man. He was catching footballs, running, stuff like that. He's got that, like, the ability like Travis.
Right.
Catch the ball. He can get yards. He'll jump over guys. That's the type of player he is. But Spags just put this thing display on, like, listen, we're going to be a bend, don't break. We can't let him run the football. We just can't let him do it and be effective.
Right.
And Spags, what he did, he attacked lanes. That's what he did. And so I said, whoever wins in the trenches is going to win this game. Whoever has the best rushing offense is going to win. Chiefs end up doing it with Pacheco. You had to stop the run with the Eagles because that's how they really hurt you. And so he stopped those really quick guys. I mean, they made a little plays here and there, but ultimately, those guys did a great job, man, just stopping the run of the Eagles.
Yeah, and something that I really wanted to talk about after the game is, two things, and two things you mentioned, two things very much about is a great offensive line and great running backs. I had Will Shields on the podcast a couple weeks ago, right before the AFC Championship game. You played with him, Casey Wigman. You played with a lot of great guys, Hall of Fame like talent on the offensive line. And then the running backs you played with, Larry Johnson, Priest Holmes. Pacheco reminds me just the way he runs hard, like a Larry Johnson type guy. Talk a little bit about how this offensive line, and I really want to, shout out the offensive line, 0 sacks.
Yes.
We talked about all week long, the NFL Network, people talked about 70 sacks, the defensive line for the Eagles. They're going to be all over Patrick Mahomes. They allowed 0 sacks, and a guy like Creed Humphrey allowed 0 pressures. 0 pressures, phenomenal game. So talk a little bit about Pacheco and this offensive line this past game versus the Eagles.
Well, I tell you what, they really showed up when they needed to. And I know people had a lot of criticism of Orlando Brown,
right?
Wiley and those guys, right? And there was times because we look, and I was just like, we're passing a lot, so those guys are going to be more susceptible, to the pressures and things like that. Okay, let's just
absolutely.
But when they started to dedicate themselves to the run, and they seen Pacheco ripping out for like 6 yards and 10 and 12 and stuff like that, and he's like, man, this guy is eating. We're going to let him eat, okay?
Right.
We're going to stick with it. And so that was the game plan. I think when it changed is when they realized we had to run the football against this team. Because I don't know if you remember or not, but there was a point in the game when Pat went in and they threw like 3 passes. And I'm just like, why are we not running the football? There's always
right.
To the passing again. I'm like, that's not going to work.
And they kind of did that versus the Bengals.
Yeah, yes. Matter of fact, and that's what helped teams out because first off, you're not running the clock, okay, and you're not taking the yards. And then the thing is, the Bengals will just sit back in zone and just cover guys, right? They just want to have too many guys. But Pacheco, this game was 10 times better than the game before that. The playoff game was against the Bengals. He was a little cautious when he was running. I don't think he was hitting the lanes and the holes like he should have. I think he was more like, kind of carrying the ball like, I don't want to make a mistake, right?
Yeah. Holding on to the ball a little too tight.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think Travis Kelce kind of showed him the way. Travis was like playing loose, the way he talking is like, hey, man, look, just go out there and have fun. It's a playoff game, but this is what we've been doing all year, baby. Come on, just show what you want to do. Pacheco, I think he took it by storm, man. That joker was running hard. He could have been in an argument as far as like
the MVP of the game.
MVP of the game. Absolutely.
I agree.
No doubt about it. So that's a nice little wink to him, man, because Rook showed out, man. He did. So hats off to him. But I think it's what it was. I think it was, dedicating himself to the running game because the running game was what's going to work. You was going to make sure that those guys weren't going to peel their ears back and come at the Patrick Mahomes on the pass rush, right? That's what you do.
Yeah, and let's not forget, he could have had that game-winning touchdown if it wasn't for C.J. Gardner-Johnson with that game-saving crazy tackle. Pacheco took a bounce to the outside and almost took it home.
Yeah.
And we can't forget about the veteran, a guy who played so well this season, Jerick McKinnon. McKinnon played so well. Kind of reminds me of a Derek Blaylock type guy back in the day. You have your premier back in Pacheco, but you have Jerick McKinnon, who just played very well for this Chiefs offense. I hope they do bring him back. What do you think Jerick McKinnon, just brought to this team this season? It was a little bit quieter in the playoffs with the blocking game. And again, I'm talking to one of the best Chiefs outside of offensive line blocking personnel to ever play. But talk a little bit about Jerick McKinnon, what he meant to this team this season.
Dude, it's real simple. I'm going to say this. We're not in the Super Bowl without Jerick McKinnon. Period.
Wow.
That's a reality. That is reality. For the simple fact that he taught Pacheco what he needed to do, how to get better. And Pacheco was watching him about how to be a pro, how to actually go in and block. And he started trying it, how to chip those guys going out, right?
Right.
As McKinnon, okay, he's not as good as a pass blocker as McKinnon, okay, but he was watching him. He was like, man, I'm willing to do this, okay? Probably didn't have to do it up in Rutgers. I'm sure he didn't have to do it at Rutgers, okay?
Right.
But McKinnon showed him the way. McKinnon was, when I'm telling you, it was that stretch when McKinnon scored like 4 or 5 touchdowns in like 2 weeks. You know, the Jet, man. Was
9 touchdowns in a month.
Come on, man. I mean, look, the Chiefs are not in the Super Bowl and winning without Jerick McKinnon.
Wow.
That's a fact, period. So that's what he means to this team, is because of his professionalism, his skill set, his talent. That's what he took him to the Super Bowl. And I'm going to say this. The heads he play at the end, how intelligent is that? Of going down,
sliding down.
Come on. Of just knowing down a situation. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He was going like, oh, yeah.
You could have got a guy like Pacheco as a rookie, kind of not thinking in that moment. If someone doesn't tell him, it kind of goes in the end zone. They're like, no, we want to run the clock out. So I agree with you. A heads-up play by a guy like Jerick McKinnon, and we just talked about it. The last month of the season, he had 8-9 touchdowns. That crazy play where Patrick Mahomes kind of did his Magic Johnson impersonation and just kind of threw it over his shoulder, and he took it to the house. Something else we got to move on to our next segment is talking about the Chiefs and the upcoming future of the Chiefs. We talked about earlier the rookies that stepped up: Karlaftis, Watson, Williams, Pacheco, Cook. You know, we can't forget about a guy like Brandon Cook. And just the other guys over the years that have come along. We had Marcus Kemp in the playoffs catching passes. Again, if you're not a dire Chiefs fan, you may not even know who Marcus Kemp is, you know, coming in there catching passes. Justin Watson. A guy that I think we have to talk about is Brett Veach. You know, you played with a great GM and Carl Peterson, who brought in great guys like Dante Hall that went under the radar. Larry Johnson, who was sort of a later round pick. But Brett Veach, you know, the last 2 drafts, bringing in the offensive line. Let's not forget how bad our offensive line is. What do you think some of the things that Brett Veach can bring in, and how much should we be appreciating Brett Veach?
I mean, Brett Veach is, man, he's a very smart guy. He can see talent. He wheels and deals contracts all the time. I think that's another thing that he has a huge talent in, as far as getting guys for what he's getting guys for, right? Not breaking the bank on some guys and going after, you know, the meat. So
like Tyreek.
Yeah, Tyreek, just seeing like, hey, you know what? Hey, Tyreek's a great player, no doubt about it. But what can we get in the draft? Okay. So we got to think long term here. Okay. We got to think how long can our money actually run? That's the thing we got to get to. And Beach, I'm telling you, man, he thinks these things through. And it's all about not just this move and winning this year. We're talking about 5 years down the road. How do we develop? How are these guys going to fit into our culture? That is very, very important. Okay. And so I'm gonna ask you this. Have you really seen him go get somebody that had an ego that was bigger than everybody else? I'm not, you know what I mean?
And that's the funny thing. People talked about Kadarius Toney's, how he may have an attitude problem, how he doesn't want to play for the Giants. A lot of people, and even on NFL Network, ESPN, the X factor in the game they talked about was Kadarius Toney, because a guy like Hardman was out.
Yes.
How many passes did he catch? 1, and that was a touchdown.
Yeah.
He came in the game. He didn't complain. He had a big kick return touchdown. He came on his team and was immediately plugged in the locker room. You know, we saw the little video where he's talking about who's your favorite teammate, Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
And that's the thing about Brett Veach is he takes these guys that people kind of write off, and he brings them in, and they immediately plug into the locker room. And that's a tribute to Clark Hunt and Brett Veach. The whole organization is, how many knuckleheads do you see come in on the Chiefs team and not work out? You have a Le'Veon Bell that kind of went back and kind of talk bad about the Chiefs, but was it a real problem on the Chiefs at the time? You don't really see that. And that's a huge part on Brett Veach. He brought in guys like Justin Watson, and now they're huge. I mean, people are talking about Pacheco, next year that he's going to be, one of the premier backs in the league. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't know who Pacheco was. When he first got on the team, I was calling him Pachenko. You had videos of Travis Kelce going, that Pachenko kid can run. And no disrespect to Tyreek, but we could be looking up in the next couple of years, and he's the new number 10. Yeah. Where you could have it where, one of the best number 10s. Was it Kelce? Was it Trent Green? Was it Pacheco? Yeah. So, to answer your question, no, you don't really see a guy like Brett Veach bringing too many knuckleheads.
No. And those are the important things, right? Because it's like, not one guy is bigger than a team, okay?
Right.
If PM15 can come in and assimilate and get everybody to play with him and whatnot and understand that, and he, without a doubt, could arguably be the biggest star in the NFL, why can't you come in and do it, right? And if a guy that displays any of those things, he's probably gone the very next year, right? He ain't going to be around that long, just because for the simple fact, not just Beach, but also Andy. Andy has a guy, he makes sure he manages guys to like, look, man, this is not what we do. When we come here, this is a winning culture. We are going to win. We need winners. We need team players. We need guys not worried about stats, not worried about going out there getting your name in the paper, right? And I think part of that was Tyreek. Tyreek was a little sour at that because he felt like he was playing, third fiddle to everybody else, right? He didn't feel like he had a name of, PM15 and Travis Kelce, and he didn't know how to fit. He wanted to be the guy. And there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever.
Right.
Love Tyreek Hill. Love Tyreek Hill. Everything he got here. Hey, gracious all those things about him. Have great.
Helped us win a Super Bowl.
No doubt about it. But the thing is, he had to go do what he had to do. And so at a certain point, Beach was like, look, hey, man, we need to get our money, get the most out of our money. And we need to go down here and go get a couple guys for Tyreek, who's the most coveted wide receiver out here that everybody would want. Let's go do it. And I'm sure when he went in and he had that thought process, like everybody's like, what? Huh? What? Right?
It was shocking to me.
Yeah.
And that's something I wanted to talk about, because we're talking about the offseason. We're going to get a little bit more into that here in a second. But a guy like Brett Veach is, his first season with the team, his first decision was essentially trading away a guy like Alex Smith, who had his best season, and giving the keys of the franchise to a guy like Patrick Mahomes, and a guy who kind of, took him underneath his wings. And, a key point, a guy who didn't have to do that. He could have sat there like Brett Favre and just said, I'm not going to, teach him the playbook. I'm not going to sit there and film a room with him as a guy like Alex Smith. And that speaks on, the culture of the Kansas City Chiefs. A guy like Tyreek Hill, he wanted what he wanted, and he got that. And I'm not going to lie, when the breaking news happened, I was like, Veach, what are you doing? Like, we have to hit on some of these draft picks. So this is where I'm going to let you play GM for a little bit. Brett Veach, he just won the Super Bowl. So we're going to let him sit down for a day because Jason Dunn is the new GM for today. Going into the offseason, what are your three main things the Chiefs need to do in this offseason?
All season, three main things the Chiefs need to do. Okay. For one, and I've been kind of talking about this. I was on this last year, and we kind of addressed it. But I think we need more. And this is not against any other person, but I think we need a really prolific defensive tackle beside Chris Jones. I think we need. Okay, I really do. I think Frank has done a tremendous job, with the pass rush. I think
especially in the playoffs.
In the playoffs, right. I think we need another, rush defensive end. I think we do. Another guy, go get it. Just salivating, wants to go get the quarterback. I think we need a guy like that. That could play kind of that both. You could get a guy that was kind of like, a Melvin Gordon or somebody like you, right?
Right.
Dude. Carlos Dunlap, tremendous job. I love Carlos. If we get a younger Carlos Dunlap, go get a guy like that, okay? So those are two things addressed, I think, on defense. I think everywhere else we're okay. I think we're good, all right? The next thing I think we need to go address, wide receiver. Okay, look, we got guys, but we know guys may not be here. Juju may not be here. We know um, Harmon may not be here, and so
Right.
those are things that we have to address. Maybe getting another guy. Sky Moore still in development. He did a great job. He's going to be an exciting guy for us in the future. Next year,
Absolutely.
too. Yeah, next year too. Offensive line. I know we want to talk about it, but we will. Let's talk about offensive.
Yes. Tackle for sure.
I think we have guys there. I like Darian Kennard a lot. I think Darian is a guy that can start for the Chiefs.
Kentucky guy.
Kentucky guy, no doubt about it. Had him on our show, man. Good dude. I know he has a heart of a lion, and I know he'll love to just go out there and just go fight and go eat.
Mm-hmm.
I know that. OBJ Jr., man, he's gonna be pricey. Okay, that's gonna be the fight.
Right.
I don't trust tackles in drafts as much
Right.
as I like a guy that's been there before, a guy that comes in
seasoned.
Yeah, no doubt about it, because that's just a learning curve. And we got PM15 back here. I got time for you to be learning while we got, Mr. Big.
The best quarterback, yeah.
We can't do it. Can't do it. Okay. We see this happen. Guys making mistakes. Guys get hurt like that. So I'm not that big on a draft guy for tackles, but I knew we needed to go and get a guy like that. Okay. Free agency, whatever we need to do. Okay. Running back. Okay. That's another guy that I think we need to go get. Go get your guy that you know is kind of a bigger guy than Pacheco. I think Pacheco could probably put on another 10 pounds. All right. I think he ran hard. His body's going to take a lot of punishment.
Right. Because he doesn't, if there's a player in front, he meets him head on.
He meets him head on, man. But I think he can get up to another 10 pounds, 5 or 10 on him. It will look great on his frame. He'll still have the speed. He'll still be a beast of the animal. Now he's just going to be a more punishing runner.
Right.
And so would that help out with McKinnon? Because I don't think you get rid of McKinnon. McKinnon's a guy like,
no,
man, we got to have this guy, man. This is Johnny on the spot. Get us through, okay? And I think down the road, you get a guy, to be honest with you, you get a guy as a quarterback. Look, hats off to Chad Henne. Well done.
Retired, right. Absolutely, deserves a round of applause.
Yes, he does.
Retired.
Yes, he does. And so I don't want to miss that point on it. But if you get a guy later on in the draft, guy that is a good quarterback, could back up,
right.
In a pinch, something happens, the guy could be right there for us.
Mm-hmm.
So, you might get a guy like that early. Man, there's a couple of quarterbacks. Now, I coached in the NFL PA Bowl, okay, the Collegiate Bowl in LA. And I've seen a lot of talented quarterbacks out there that can absolutely come in and play for the Chiefs. So that might be a thing of catching some new quarterbacks to get out there. I see some really good ones. And let me see, what else? What else are we looking for? Man, that's kind of it. You will and deal to get other guys right. But I think I addressed the issues, I think, for me, that we were kind of looking at.
Right.
Now, we got a safety. We got pretty much good safeties. You might want to get a safety maybe last, but I don't think you quite need it. Maybe get some competition in there. But everything, man, I think I've said what we need to address pretty much.
Yeah, and I like all of these. I mean, to be honest, you hit each one on the head. Those are the ones I have written down here. Okay. So the first one we'll go over real quick. You said quarterback. You had Chad Henne. Shout out Chad Henne. Great backup. Was always ready to come in. He technically, the win goes to Patrick Mahomes because he started that game versus Cleveland. But he won that playoff game for the Kansas City Chiefs. And again, about a backup coming in. Shout out Damian Heward, 06 season, came in for Trent Green. 11 touchdowns, 1 interception, had a great year that year. So Chad Henne came in on the moment's notice versus the Jags. Shane Buechele's back there, but a quarterback is definitely a need they have. Is there any names? Is there any names that you've seen, out there that you would like to see in a Chiefs uniform, rookies or vets?
Dude, there's a lot of names. Well, I won't say a lot. There's a guy here, but I don't think with Patrick being here, he wouldn't get to play. But he's such a talented guy. And it's Malik Cunningham. We had him from U of L, Louisville.
Louisville, yeah.
Somebody's gonna pick him up.
He's like a Lamar Jackson.
Yes, he's a little more. He's without a doubt broke all his records in Louisville. He without a doubt Malik Jackson, but Cunningham. But I know we wouldn't be able to get him. But just I don't know far name wise.
Right.
There's some good guys. Dude at Penn State was pretty good. You know, he's a good quarterback.
Right.
Might be another guy that they're looking at to be a starter in the NFL right now and immediately. So hey, maybe go get another veteran guy. Okay,
right.
Get a veteran guy off the team that you need to get. So that would be maybe my suggestion, as opposed to maybe a rookie coming out there, but maybe a more veteran presence and come play for the Chiefs.
All right. Well, I'll put down Malik Cunningham. You know, you never know. Let's not forget, Andy Reid is known for bringing in guys where he can kind of develop them. And, you know, if they happen to get in a game or two, where hopefully that we have a Mr. Week 18, because the Chiefs are always the first round pick. So that would be great. And, you know, maybe later on they ship him off for a late round pick. We know Andy Reid has been known for that. He did it with a guy like Michael Vick. And so, you know, I think that's a great option. Running back, this is where, you know, real quick to get, you know, your perspective, a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You know, that 25 on his back reminds me of Jamal Charles. He's not quite like Jamal Charles. But, you know, you mentioned drafting a running back, and there's a part of me that thinks they need to draft a running back. But that's when the running back room starts to get a little crowded. You'd have a guy like Pacheco, McKinnon, and then you'd either have that rookie plus a guy like Clyde Edwards. Do you think that they need to maybe move on from a guy like Clyde Edwards, or is he that backup running back they can still use?
You know what? I think, and I love CEH. I do.
I do too.
Yeah, I think maybe, you know, you move on from him and let him develop somewhere else, right?
Right. Give him an opportunity.
Yeah, man. You know, and because Pacheco has fought for that position.
Right.
Rojo signed a 2-year contract, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
So you still got Rojo, Melvin Gordon. So some of those guys won't be here, but Rojo could be another guy, another back that's there. Let him keep battling it out. Let him keep battling it out. So I think, like you said, it gets a little crowded, but you might find somebody like a Pacheco, right? Except, you know, a late round pick who come in, who's hungry, who can run the football effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, and they're not as prominent of pass catchers out the backfield.
Right.
So you might need a guy that can do that, can do both. But, you know, as far as like CH, hey, man, I think his days here in Kansas City may be done.
Yeah. And again, I like Clyde Edwards. I would rather see him, you know, go to a team and, you know, get a good opportunity. And there's a lot of teams out there that he could go to and have a good opportunity. Another room that could get a little crowded next year. You did mention it. We'll go over this before we move on to our next segment. Is the wide receiver room. A lot of guys on the practice squad. A lot of guys you could bring in through the draft. A lot of guys you could sign. And you mentioned, you know, some of the guys you could lose. McCall Hardman, he's up. And Juju could be up. And we know the wide receiver market this offseason is very, very slim pickings. Not a lot of names in the free agency. You got a guy like Alan Lazard, and outside of that, it's really a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster. Could you maybe give me a rundown on some of the receivers you think will be back in Kansas City?
So I think you keep Justin Watson, no doubt about it.
Okay, so Watson.
Yes. You also, of course, Sky Moore is going to be there. Kadarius Toney.
Right, yeah.
Out and keep him. Not even a question. MVS, I think he showed enough as far as like, hey, this guy right here, he can go and be a game changer. We watched him.
Yeah. Right. Huge in Cincinnati game.
Yes. Yes. So we get more games like that out of him, man. Then that's a great investment in him. Thing is Justin Ross. How's this developing?
Right.
Is he going to
John Ross.
And John Ross, yeah. So we're talking about them, man. There's receiver room, like you said. When you start thinking about, man, you got me thinking.
Getting crowded, yeah. And that's 10 guys alone right there.
Yes. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys that could come in and play for the Chiefs because for one, PM50 is gonna get him the ball.
Right.
If he can get open, he's gonna get you the ball. And so that's the thing about it. Find your window, get open, know what I'm doing, and I'm gonna get the football to you. As long as you can catch it, you're gonna be good. So it could get crowded. If you go get a guy, then you had to get a guy who's like a no-miss guy. That's the only way you can do it, right?
Right.
Like you had like London Drake and those guys, like you had to go get a guy like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
There was Sky Moore who's going to get open, catch the football, things like that. If you did anything, but the guy, like you said, it gets crowded in the room, man. And when I start going through the names, I'm seeing it now. I'm actually seeing it.
Right. And you know, Cole Hardman. You know, maybe they gave him a 1-year prove-it deal because of some of the injuries. Maybe some other teams don't want to bring him in. You know, there's been some rumors maybe Chicago brings him in because the times of Ryan Poles there, former Chiefs assistant GM. You know, let's not forget Hardman, how good he was playing before he got hurt. You know, he had 3-4 touchdowns versus that 49ers defense. Another room that, you know, we talk about a position you played so well, the tight end room. Blake Bell, Noah Gray, Jody Fortson, Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce ain't going nowhere. You know, he's still playing at the best level in football. You played with a guy, I think it was number 88, that guy, what was his name?
Tony something.
Tony Gonzalez or something like that.
Yeah,
Gonzalez. So you played with a guy like that where every year he was breaking Shannon Sharp's record. But Father Time is a real thing eventually for Travis Kelce. Do you think maybe tight end's a position they could go get in the later rounds, or do you think that they're good with the positions they have and maybe just develop a guy like Noah Gray?
I think you know that's definitely a possibility. I think you go get a guy. You know, I coached a lot of great guys in the NFL PA Bowl, and so you get a guy that can go in and block, who can catch the football, who are pass catchers. There's some talented tight ends coming out. And here's the reality: we have been so fortunate that Travis Kelce hadn't gotten hurt. Okay, he's been out killing people like that. You know, he's getting older, right? This is football. This is how things happen. But as long as his health is in there, we'll keep him. We just know that he continued to take hits, right? And you don't want to see these things happen. But if something like that happened, you do got Noah Gray, you do got Jody Fortson. You go get a guy. Go get a guy and let a guy show up. And so, you know, I had, Ben Sims, I had, Jaleel Billingsley, I had Michael Ezekiel, I had let me see, who else did I have at the time? I had Noah Grindorf, I had Brady Russell, who's more like he's a guy that, who can go play hard. He's got the heart, the block, can do it all. And so these are guys that I know can go and play for the Chiefs. And they're not just good pass catchers, but also they're good blockers.
Right.
So, that definitely is a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, Blake Bell, a guy, I'm a big Sooners guy, so of course I got a shot on my man Blake Bell. He's, came back first game, had a touchdown, always in the trenches. Noah Gray played well. Jody Fortson, he had a little bit of the injury bug this season, but former basketball player like Tony Gonzalez.
Yep.
I feel like he can be a big red zone target for the Kansas City Chiefs. Speaking about tight ends, some fun little questions I got for you since you played with such fun Chiefs teams. Again, a team, one of my favorite teams, even though I was very young at the time, was that 03 Chiefs team. I asked Will Shields about it a little bit. But before we go, one of our last segments, we got to, do you have any fun stories with your times with the Kansas City Chiefs? I mean, you played with phenomenal players. Is there any, couple stories you have where, you maybe never shared here on the TPT podcast?
I'll tell you one. Right. It is not really a fun story. It's really a disappointing one. And it's kind of looking back, kind of laugh at it now, but I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. So you mentioned his name earlier, man. And this is my guy, Derek Blaylock. I love Block.
Right.
All right. Love Block to death. Doing some great things down in Texas. Man, he's putting guys in the NFL and college. He's doing a phenomenal job. The NBA, I mean, he's doing it. He's a trainer, man. He's getting all these guys out there. But go check him out. So me and Block would ride to practice sometimes and, going to the games. This was an away game. So we had to go on Saturday, go to the airport, get on a plane and fly. I forgot where we was going. Well, I drove to the stadium and I had to drive back home. And Block was waiting at the stadium and he thought I told him I was going to head back to the stadium and I'll just ride with him to the airport. Well, I ended up going home, picking up like my suit, putting it on, and I drove to the airport. Okay. So Block, being the character guy he is, man, just a great guy, solid guy, a dependable guy. Okay.
Right.
Is waiting for me at the airport. He's waiting for me. He's waiting on his boy JD. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I get to the plane and somebody's like, "Yo, JD, where's Blaylock at?" I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh, shoot." I said, "Man, I meant to call Blaylock because he was waiting for me." And I called Block, said, "Man, I'm so sorry." Well, we had to go. And so one of the coaches was like, "Man, look, don't worry about it, Blaylock. You don't have to come to the game and play." And to this day, I cannot, just apologize to him enough for leaving him or him thinking that I was going to meet him at the airport or meet him at the stadium to drive to the airport, man. He had my back. And I was just like, you know what, man, I'll pay the fine, whatever it is. I couldn't believe I did that, So not really a fun story, but it was just like one of those things, just like, Dad, got it, type of deal.
So you left Derek Blaylock at Arrowhead.
At Arrowhead. And I was supposed to ride with him. And so he was with me.
What do you remember what the game was?
I don't remember. I want to forget that. I really do. I want to forget that old situation.
This could have been the Derek Blaylock game. This could have been the 250-yard Derek Blaylock game. I mean, that's a good one. Another one I was going to ask you also on Hard Knocks. Any funny stories from Hard Knocks? What that was like? Herm Edwards. Just crazy bunch of group. Jared Allen. Can't forget a guy like Jared Allen. So, you're on Hard Knocks. So is there any crazy stories you have maybe from Hard Knocks?
From Hard Knocks. So, real quick, if you've seen Hard Knocks, you see me and Herm kind of go at it because he was going to put it on the second floor. I was pissed. I was absolutely livid.
I was in Wisconsin.
Yeah, Wisconsin. And sure enough, when I came in, I'm just like, yo, what's going on? And, I'm looking at room assignments, and I always had like the first room on the first floor.
Because vets usually do, right?
Vets usually do, right? Yeah. Emil had me on the first floor, first room, because I was like sleeping in. Last one get more age and stuff like this, JD. So JD, I let you sleep, get what you need to get. You got that room. So this is after my injury. Herm was like, put me on the second floor. I'm like, yo, I immediately go over, and the guys are looking like, hey, like we had nothing to do with this. So I go get Herm out of the coaches meeting. All the coaches, hey, JD, what's going on? I said, Herm, can I talk to you for a second? Cameras immediately, like, bam, on us. Like, I'm like, what the hell's going on? Well, Jared Allen is complaining about his room too in his assignment,
Right.
So he's watching me and Herm go at it, and Herm's like, JD, you're not even practicing this. And I said, Herm, that's wrong. Okay. I've earned this. I done been in this sucker for 11 years. I've earned those stripes. Those guys are trying to get it. Right. And so I was so pissed. And I said, look, I'm going to talk to you about this every single day until you change this. Every single day. I'm not going to let you forget about it. And I was so pissed. Man, I was going to fly back home. I was like, man, forget this. My brother, he calmed me down because I was about to get a flight. And like, man, screw this. I ain't dealing with this type of, disrespect is how I felt about it.
Right.
Well, the funny thing is, Jared Allen's watching us go at it. Jared's like, oh, I'm cool. I'm leaving there. He said, Jared, I don't even want no part of it.
So you kind of spoke for, you got enough of the frustration out for you and Jared Allen.
Yes, right. And Jared's like, okay, I'm not even going to get into it. I ain't going to ask her because I already know what the answer is going to be. If JD is sitting over here and he's going at it, he's like,
right.
Yeah, Jared can see the tension. But, hey, it is what it is. But, Jared is just a funny guy, man. That's my dude. He came in with a Speedo into the meeting room one day and was asking, hey, does anybody know where the pool's at? I'm kind of lost. So, Jared just do things like that. Here he is in this Speedo, and everybody just died laughing in a team meeting. In the middle of it, just interrupts the whole thing. And so stories like that, man, we just had with each other. You know, it's a family, and that's what the Chiefs organization is. It's a big family. And so I played with some great guys, wonderful dudes, love every single minute of it, love those guys because of what they are, who they are, and, you know, what they just brought to the table. And so, you know, when we talk about spending time with our players, they're like a family. We spend time with them more than we with our families at times. So, yeah.
Yeah, and so what was worse, in your opinion, Jared Allen in a Speedo or Bernard Pollard dancing in the locker room?
What was worse? I don't know. Both of those was funny. Oh, my goodness. It was funny. That Bernard boy, he did it. He did those splits too good. That joker, I'm like, man. I'm like, that guy, B-Pop. You know what I'm saying? It was funny watching the segment. I'm just like, there's no way that would never get old. Watching them do that, man. It's always going to be funny watching that, you know, him and Jared, man. So it's crazy. Crazy.
That is good times, good old Hard Knocks back in the 2007 season.
Yeah.
A fun thing we like to do on the TBT podcast before we go is you get to play a little game where you get to pick two players to play on this modern Chiefs team that you played with. You get to pick one on the defensive side of the ball and one on the offensive side of the ball. Who are those guys going to be?
Oh, okay.
And more why?
And why? Let me see. Defensive side of the ball.
And you get to plug them immediately into this Chiefs team.
Yeah. I think if you plug in Jared Allen, it's not as, shoot. It's unstoppable at that moment. Right? Him and Chris Jones.
Yeah.
I mean, you already got, right, immediately you got the best defensive line in the league.
And maybe the funniest defensive line.
And without the funniest, no doubt. It's not even no question about that. Offensively, who do you plug in?
A lot of guys you played with.
A lot of guys. Shoot. Oh, man. I mean, you can go up and down on the offensive line. You know, you really could. Tackle-wise, I mean, you got Willie Roaf. Come on.
Yeah, a Hall of Famer.
Oh, man. Come on. One of the best ever, without a doubt.
Right.
Shoot. Then you got your running backs. You put Priest, LJ, you know what I'm saying, in there? Woo. You know, so that's tough. But if I said anything, I mean, and look, Hall of Famers, Willie Roaf, Brian Waters, Casey Wigman, Will Shields, John Tate. I mean, we're talking up across the board. Man, ain't those guys you can plug in, still be great and dynamic. Obviously,
right. You can put anyone in there.
Anyone in there. You know, can you imagine Tony and Travis Kelce going too tight?
I would have run 12 personnel every play.
Every play. But who you going to stop? Who you going to guard? Who you going to double? Right?
Right.
Can't do it.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, you could go at the running backs. You plug them in on this Chiefs team. Really anyone back when you played. So for our final thing, anything you want to shout out? We love letting people know where they can either keep up with you. We know you're doing awesome things at Kentucky State. You're coaching over there. Special teams, am I correct?
Well, I was. So I'm not coaching at Kentucky State anymore. And so right now,
okay.
I'm doing more now. I'll shout this out. More of my Done for Kids Foundation. I started out in Kansas 2003. And so I'm a mentor going in and I'm giving kids the blueprint diagram as far as like how to get through life, what you need to do to succeed, just skill set, mentality, mental fortitude, all those different things to be successful. And so high schools, going to different teams, football teams, and all teams actually, and just having these conversations about what I need to do, what we need to do as a society to help you succeed. That's the thing about it.
Right.
Help me help you. That's what I want to do. I want to be able to give back to the kids, promote whoever to get to the next level. And so my Done for Kids Foundation, I'm going to get more of those things out. I did a thing with Eddie Montgomery where we had a golf tournament and we gave some of the proceeds to the flood victims here at East Kentucky University.
Wow.
University. I'm sorry, Eastern Kentucky. I'm sorry. But that's what I want to do. I'm all about servitude, brother. I'm all about service. And so that's one thing I want to be able to do and put it out. But you could catch us on Chiefs Concerns doing the podcast. That's another thing getting out there, right? Chiefs Concerns, just talking about everything Chiefs, bringing on former players, current players, coaches, strength coaches, whatever. And we just talking about the culture, players, good times, all these, everything that we can talk about Chiefs. Apple, Spotify, YouTube is where we at. That's where you can find us. Twitter, IG, Instagram, that's where we are. We're moving into the Instagram even more. I'm not really a big pictures guy, but everybody talks about it. So I'm trying to get into that realm. But Twitter is like that's my float. That's my world. That's what I kind of do. But that's it. Other than that, man, that's the shout out, man. I just want to, hats off again to all the Kansas City Chiefs organizations. Hats off to the fans. Hats off to you, my brother, and everybody else that does podcasts, get these things out here. I think you have a great voice, good show. Everybody needs to come on and see it. And I'm all about everybody getting out here and everybody eating and giving everybody as much information and knowledge of Chiefs as possible. So keep doing it.
Absolutely.
Let me keep encouraging you, man, to keep doing it, and keep doing it great the way that you've been doing it. Absolutely.
Truly, truly appreciate it. One more time for everybody, the Jason Dunn Foundation.
Yeah, Done for Kids is what it's called. Done for Kids.
Done for Kids.
Yes.
Done for Kids. And guys, if you're not checking out Chiefs Concerned, you're really not a real Chiefs fan. I'm going to be honest with you guys. One of the best Chiefs podcasts. They have awesome guests on there. A guy we had on the podcast, Eric Warfield, he's pops in there. They've had Dick Vermeil, Dante Hall, a lot of guys over there. He does a great podcast over there. So make sure you guys go check that out. Go check him out on Twitter. He's always active on Twitter. Jason, so thank you much for being on the podcast, my man. Hope to have you on again real soon. Really appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely, man. It was a pleasure of mine. All right. Take care, man. All right. Goodness to you. God bless.
Thank you. All right, everybody. That'll do it for the TPT podcast. We see you guys later on this week with special guest Eddie Kennison and some other special guests. We will see you guys next time.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you guys hit that notification bell, follow us on all social media, and check out our videos each week.